So once you get your lines marked out, like Mike was saying, they don't have to be perfect. We're going to pretty it up once we get the rasp out. You're just going to take your axe and just kind of clean up the edges and get it close to this line, save you a lot of work. And I can't say enough about having a good axe in the woods. Do not buy cheap Gerber products, things like that. You'll just kill you're burning calories. Calories is a survival game. So get you a good axe. I recommend Gransfors Bruks or Wetterlings or any of the Swedish style axes, and they just work 1,000 times better for especially stuff like this where you need precision. And I'm going to get these edges cleaned up, and then we'll come back to the next step. So right now he's going to mark out the belly so that we know how much wood to take off. This is just a rough line. After we get the wood shaved off this, we'll come back with things like rasp and finer woodworking tools once we get it roughed out.
That's your handle, and this will be your working part of your limb.
So after you've got it roughed out and you get it close to these black lines, then you're going to take your rasp and start refining it down and evening it out according to the lines that we've drawn. And this is the slowest process right here, getting it off, but you don't want to use an axe much further past this because you'll cut into it and then you might even ruin the whole thing if you hit it in a wrong way. So this is where the rasp comes in. Alright, so basically all we're doing right now is the elbow grease work, and we're trying to follow our lines and even this out to where it's kind of symmetrical on both sides. If one side gets a little bit off, compensate on the other. And we're working on our hand guard, and this is just the elbow grease portion. We'll keep you updated as we get a little bit closer. So you always want to check your widths and your dimensions, making sure that everything's symmetrical. You want the same width all the way up and down. And it's just a long, slow, laborious process, and we're just going to keep whittling away at it.
Alright, we've got the bow progressing along now. It's thinned down enough now that we can start to do what's called the floor tiller, where we're pushing into the bow and seeing how the limbs are bending. And you can tell that this limb's still a little bit stiffer, so we're going to take a little bit more off of it, and then we're going to actually cut some string grooves in it and put it on a tiller and stick and start pulling it down a little bit to start checking the bend of the limbs. But it won't be long till we'll have a string on this bow. Okay, we've got our bow thinned down and we're ready to go to the tiller and stick to see how our limbs are bending. And we have to actually cut some string grooves in the bow now, and even though it's still wider than it's going to be for the completed bow, we're going to cut some notches in there, and as we thin the bow down, we'll just deepen the notch. But what we've done, we're going to use a chainsaw file, and I've taken a magic marker and put some marks in there. And there's probably an exact angle that you want to put on there, but this is what works for me. It's probably about a 45, and I'll just put it on there and hold my thumb as a guide and just remove the magic marker notch and cut the string grooves in just about the depth of the chainsaw file. And you're not going to cut through the back, just the sides. Okay, we've got our bow with the string grooves cut in, and what we're going to do now is put it on a tillering string, and it's just a long string with one loop, and it's a no stretch material, and we can tie a timber hitch, and then we'll put it on this what's called a tillering stick. And to tie this knot, we're going to leave plenty of slack, so we're going to put one loop on there, and then we're going to tie the knot. We're going to make the loop, come around the string, and then start going on the inside of the loop that we've made 4 times. And what this is, it's called the timber hitch or a bowyer's knot. And what it will do, it'll allow you to slip it on there, and it'll noose up on your knot and not come off. And then you can adjust the length as you need it. So it's going to stay on there. Now we're going to put the bow on the tiller stick, pull it down a little bit to test the bend of our bow. And what this does is it'll allow you to start bending the limbs without stressing them. And we'll gradually pull it down in a couple inch increments, and we start testing the bend. You can see right now that both of them are bending evenly, so we could, it's still way strong, so we can take equal amounts off both limbs and be good. If there was a stiff spot or a spot that was bending too much, we would start avoiding those places or concentrating on removing the wood in the stiff spots. But right now we're good. We'll just thin it down a little bit more, and then the next time we'll pull it down another inch or so further and start seeing where we're going from there. What we've done now, we've got the bow where it's real even on the tiller and stick. Both limbs are bending evenly. And before we progress with bending the bow any further, we're going to try to take out all the tool marks along the side, kind of soften the edges, and make sure that our back is really slick. We don't want any little nicks, ledges, gouges, anything like that that would give the bow a place to start raising up a splinter. So what we're going to do is just use a piece of flat steel. You can use a knife. Done it that way a lot, but basically we're just going to start scraping little thin scrapings off of the bow to slick up everything on it. Some of this is just that inner bark cambium layer that's underneath the bark and lays next to the wood. It can come off. It doesn't really hurt anything, but it just makes for a slicker finish, more cosmetic than anything else. The main thing we want is a real slick back. We have these little tool marks here on the side. We sure want to get all of them out. And then we'll start working on the sides and get it all slicked up. Okay, we've got our bow where the limbs are bending the way we want them. We're getting the poundage down, and we figured out which limb is the stronger and which is the weaker. And you want your bottom limb to be the stronger limb. So on this bow here, we're going to cut a arrow shelf in there where it's easier to shoot and it's less critical on the shaft material. You can shoot a wider range of shaft and spine material with the shelf by getting it closer to center shot. So what we're going to do, your shelf is going to actually lay, the center of the bow is the center of the handle. And you got 2 inches above it and 2 inches below for the handle. The actual shelf is going to be 2 inches above the center of the bow. So we're going to cut this area right in here out and then kind of contour the shape of the handle so that it will be radiused off on the front and the back. And then on the inside of the bow, about the center there, we're going to radius that to the front and the back, where the arrow's hitting on the high spot right in the center and in the center of the handle, and you'll get way better arrow flight by doing that. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to take a handsaw and start cutting out this area right in here and rasp out the actual shelf in the sight window. What I'm doing now is I'm kind of radiusing the shelf where we're going to have a high spot right in the center of the shelf, and then we're also going to feather off the front here and the back side where it's going to be the same way, where the high spot is right in the center. The less contact that arrow makes with the shelf and the side of the bow, the better arrow flight you're going to get, and the closer to center you can get it, the better arrow flight you're going to get. All we're doing now is it's kind of softening the edges on the handle. It just makes it easier to shoot where it feels more comfortable in your hand. There's a lot of area in this bow where the wood's really big, so we've allowed enough wood to contour it to where it's comfortable for us. With the shelf, you have to have enough wood on the offside to be stable enough and sturdy enough to not blow out. So a center shot bow with the big shelf is great, but to be able to do that, you have to have enough wood to allow you to do that, or it will break at that point. But we've left plenty of wood here to allow us to do that.
Alright, so right now I'm just kind of refining the rest of the handle. This is a part that you got to be real mindful to watch how much wood you take off, and you definitely don't want to take too much out of this section because that'll weaken weaken this part of the bow. So just going to keep grinding away at this, and you kind of just check it every once in a while for, obviously you're making your hand grip to fit you. This is your custom bow, so you want it to be comfortable, and make sure it's not too thick. And I'm just going to work on these sections right in through here right now. This is a slow process, so. Alright, so we've got it down to the bare dimensions, and now all we've got to do is come back and sand it and take all these tool marks out, get any rough spots, and get the outside of the bow. I'm going to have to leave a few of these little bark spots on here because there's a little bit of a low spot right here. But that'll actually just kind of add to the character when we throw some stain on it and put some color and seal it and all that. So I'm just going to be sanding on this thing probably for at least the next hour, getting it real smooth. And we've about got this thing to the last final stages.